Every object humans built was supposed to stay on Earth. Houses sit on the ground, ships float on water, cars grip roads, airplanes push through air. And then there are spacecraft. Metal cans full of wires, fuel, computers, and terrified biology, thrown into a place where nothing about Earth works anymore. No air, no pressure, no warmth, no sound, no second chance. A spacecraft is basically a tiny artificial planet. It carries its own air, its own power, its own temperature, its own brain. It has to survive sunlight hot enough to cook it, darkness cold enough to freeze it, radiation strong enough to damage electronics, and speeds so insane that one wrong angle turns it into fire. And somehow, we built them anyway. For most of human history, the sky was not a destination. It was a ceiling. People looked up and saw gods, omens, angels, monsters, constellations, and mystery. The moon was not a place, it was a glowing symbol. Mars was not a world, it was a red dot. The stars were not suns, they were holes in the dark, or lamps hung by something greater than us. Then humans did the most human thing possible. We looked at the unreachable and started making tools. The first rockets were not built for science. They were built for war, ceremony, fear, and noise. Ancient Chinese fire arrows were basically bamboo tubes filled with gunpowder. They were crude, they were unstable, they were dangerous to the person firing them. But the idea was there. Put explosive energy behind an object, and it moves forward. That sounds simple, almost stupidly simple. But inside that idea was the seed of every spacecraft that would ever exist. A fire arrow becomes a rocket. A rocket becomes a missile. A missile becomes a launch vehicle. A launch vehicle becomes the thing that carries humanity's machines off the planet. And that is the uncomfortable truth about spaceflight. It did not begin as a peaceful dream. It began with fire. The first human-made object to reach space was not a satellite. It was not a telescope. It was not built to explore the stars. It was a weapon. During World War II, Nazi Germany built the V-2 rocket, a machine so advanced and so horrifying that it became the ancestor of modern space launch vehicles. In 1944, one test launch reached space. Think about that for a second. Before humans sent a message of peace into the cosmos, we sent a weapon above the atmosphere. The road to the moon started in a war factory. That is not the clean version of history, but it is the real one. After the war, the United States and the Soviet Union took German rocket technology, German engineers, and German ideas and turned them into something bigger. Not because they suddenly became poets of the universe, because they were afraid of each other. The space age was born from a staring contest with nuclear weapons behind both backs. And then, in 1957, the sky changed. The Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1. It was small, about the size of a beach ball. It did not have cameras. It did not carry astronauts. It did not land anywhere. It just went around the Earth, again and again, sending out a simple radio beep. Beep, beep, beep. That was it. But that tiny sound shook the entire planet. Because for the first time in history, something made by human hands was orbiting Earth. Not falling, not flying, orbiting. It was moving so fast that it kept missing the ground. That is what orbit really is. Falling forever, but sideways fast enough that the planet curves away beneath you. A beach ball-sized machine had turned Earth into a place you could leave. Then came Explorer 1, America's first satellite. And suddenly, spacecraft were not just symbols, they were instruments. Explorer 1 helped discover the Van Allen radiation belts, invisible zones of charged particles trapped by Earth's magnetic field. Imagine that. Humans had barely reached space, and space immediately answered with, "By the way, your planet is wrapped in radiation." Every spacecraft after that had to deal with the same lesson. Space is not empty. It is not peaceful. It is not a quiet black ocean. It is an environment, and it is hostile. Then the machines got braver. Some spacecraft stayed close, circling Earth and sending back weather data, radio signals, military information, and television broadcasts. Others were aimed higher. The Moon became the next target. The Soviet lunar missions crashed into it, photographed it, orbited it, and even saw the far side before any human eye ever did. The Moon stopped being a silver disk and became geography. Craters, mountains, dust, shadows. For the first time, another world had maps. Then, in 1961, a spacecraft carried something different. Not an antenna, not a camera, a person. Yuri Gagarin climbed into Vostok 1, a round metal capsule that looked less like a spaceship and more like something you would drop from a crane. He rode it into orbit and became the first human in space. One orbit around Earth. That was all. But one orbit was enough to change what humans were. Before Gagarin, Earth was our whole world. After Gagarin, Earth was something a human being could look down on from outside. That is a psychological break in history. The species that once feared eclipses had now put one of its own above the clouds. Then came Apollo, and Apollo was absurd. Not just difficult, absurd. Humans decided they would build a tower full of explosive fuel, place 3 men on top of it, launch them at the Moon, separate the spacecraft into pieces, land one piece on the surface, take off again from another world, reconnect in lunar orbit, fly back to Earth, hit the atmosphere at terrifying speed, and splash into the ocean. That plan sounds fake even now. But in 1969, Apollo 11 did it. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the Moon, while Michael Collins orbited above them alone, farther from every living person than any human had ever been. The spacecraft was not sleek science fiction. It was cramped, fragile, covered in foil, switches, wires, and human anxiety. And yet it worked. A machine built on Earth landed people on another world and brought them home alive. That sentence should never feel normal. But after Apollo, something strange happened. Humans had reached the Moon, and then we mostly stopped going outward with people. The dream became smaller, but also more practical.